for this evening. I am back again with a wonderful panel, a wonderful, awesome panel that we've had before. This is actually our fourth session. Yes, it is. Number four in the books on tonight, IFTD, I Fit session. We started off a few months ago, and I'm so excited that these gentlemen have been patient with me and have been coming back to talk with us about I Fit the Description. We know, of course, what we've been dealing with in this year thus far. A lot of things have been happening, going on, and because of the racial injustice that has transpired, I felt impressed to do a special segment such as this. And so then I reached out to every one of these gentlemen, and they have complied. And actually, the first three were on point. These gentlemen are, I want to say this. It was kind of hard getting them tonight because they're working men and they have families. And I tell each and every one of them, I can't pay for your bills, so make sure you get your work in order. So they're not, bums on the street. They're not just laying around, not doing anything and not doing what they're supposed to be doing. So I appreciate that about them. But let me first acknowledge my co-host for this evening. You know what? He act like those preachers in the pulpit, when you read their bio and, he just got to be humble and stuff till somebody say.
Oh, no, please don't read I can't stand that. Death to bios.
So how are you doing this evening, sir?
I'm doing wonderful. I'm geared up for this this conversation. These guys always impress me, but they never cease to amaze me. This I Fit the Description. I don't know if there'll ever be a time where conversations like these are not relevant.
Yeah.
And so I counted it as an honor to be on this panel.
Well, I sure appreciate you coming and joining and helping me out with this. I appreciate it. Now, look, we have a few of them here tonight, and some will be coming in the later hour. We have up top left, we have MLA is in the house. Matthew, how are you doing this evening? Unmute.
Sorry about that, cuz. I'm doing very well. Thank you for having me back. Excited to jump into some great dialogue as always.
Wonderful. I'm so glad that you're here. You, as well as the rest of the group, always bring a lot to the table, so I appreciate you. We have our youth pastor in the house, Youth Pastor Purnell. How are you feeling on this evening?
I'm doing well, Thanks for having me again.
Good. I'm glad that you're here. And we have the man in the middle, on my screen, Marcus Legacy. You know what I'm talking about. How you doing?
I'm doing well. Thanks for having me again. And Apostle Hunt, I appreciate that humble, time that I'm trying to be like you when she said my name. I was trying to have the humbleness. But no, thank you for having me. I'm looking forward to this.
Did it really just say that? I got you. I understand.
Yeah.
Come on. I see. Matthias is in the house. This is, oh my goodness, musician extraordinaire. He's also a youth pastor. So many accolades behind his name. And I'm so proud of him as well. How are you doing this evening, Matthias? Okay. Switched off on. All right.
I'm doing well, and hope everybody else is doing well. Of course, as Matthew said, I'm looking to discuss on tonight, so I'm ready to dig in, y'all. I'm ready.
Good. I'm glad you're ready because I'm ready to hear from you guys as well. Now we do have Michael. Michael's on the line. He has called in, and I think that he is. I won't tell you what he's doing, but he called in. Want to make things, a little uncomfortable for him. But anyway, he's also on the line, so he'll hop in from time to time to join in this discussion. Now we have a few of you that submitted a few points of discussion that we kind of want to get into. But you know what? Tonight's topic is, if you didn't see my promos that I've been kind of pushing and putting out, we were talking, of course, about after the election, what now? What now? What's going to happen now? What's going to happen for you, gentlemen? Now, your families, our race. What's going to happen now? And I think that when we look at the election, of course, that just occurred on last Tuesday. Yeah, help me out. Yeah, This time goes by so fast, I tell you. Last Tuesday, and then I wanted to do a show. I didn't want to necessarily do it the day after. And I'm so glad I followed the Spirit of the Lord, because we did not know anything the day after. and now we know something, but of course, some people are saying, just stand by and wait. Uh-oh. All right. I think I want to start off with that right there, actually, because we know that the declaration of President-elect Biden has been made. And of course, we can't forget to mention VP. I wore my version of pearls on tonight for President-elect VP Harris. My last name is Harris, I'm sorry. No, but seriously, and so that it was made, but unfortunately, or some people say fortunately, it doesn't matter. You have people that are kicking against the pricks. And so that they are not necessarily accepting that. I'm sure each and every one of you have come across that. So give me some quick thoughts on what you've come across since the declaration of the elect president and VP. I don't know who wants to start first.
I'll start first. But what really hit me today, I saw something from, or I would say the sector of the world that's really shocking me is the evangelical. And I mean, they are going crazy. You have people like Paula, like a supremely devilish laugh, and pretty much not admitting or just totally denouncing the whole election process. I mean, and it's just like, we can go into another subject as far as like how the world and how society views the church, and now the church is, it's like you got situations like this that's really stirring the pot. And so that's probably been one of the major things that that I've seen is the evangelicals and how it can get better, or just, I don't know, but I mean, that's what really shocked me over the last, I would say, 48 hours.
Yeah, I would agree. I see some heads shaking. Who wants to jump in on that?
Just piggybacking off of that, I was talking to a friend of mine, and it's the convenience. You had a situation where 4 years ago, the evangelical community, particularly the Caucasian evangelical community, had decreed like, oh, God works through elections. Trump was sent by God. God ordains, yada, 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 all this, that, and the other. And now 4 years later, it's like, oh, well, no, God was decreeing it before, but not now. And it's like, wow, that's a very convenient, where when it's somebody who you like or who you agree with, all of a sudden, God is doing everything. But then when you don't like or don't agree with it, now the whole process is fake or is messed up or this and that. To me, I think that is something where people need to look at themselves and see, like, what is it? How are you so easily able to put religion aside when it's convenient for you, and then you use it as a cloak when it's convenient for you?
Yeah.
You pick and you choose, and it's like, hey, it would be one thing if you always said it, right? And like, hey, you know what? We don't agree with this, is terrible, whatever, but God knows, and we're just gonna pray and do. Like, I can respect that, if you stay with it. But when the second that is something different from what you wanted, different from what you prophesied and said was gonna happen, and all of that, now all of a sudden it's like, no, that's not right. And so, I have a real issue with that, and that's just the first of several things that have been very, very telling, I'll say, in the past 7 days.
That was a very nice way to put it, to describe it. Very telling. Come on, Matthew.
I think seeing people kind of flip-flop based on what is convenient or what works for them is not even just an approach to democracy, but it's just an overarching approach. And what I think it opens up the evangelical base for is the sort of outside individuals who should be receiving the gospel, looking at how this group seemingly plays these things based on what benefits me the most, and says, how does that same thinking play into how you convey the gospel, how you talk about the gospel, and it's been going on for years, whether it's prosperity gospel, whether it's legitimizing slavery, or just so many different things through the word of God. This is really just a look into how certain groups of people have always framed the Bible, religion, and more specifically the gospel for their own benefit.
Okay. Ooh, there's some deep answers.
If I can add to that, we're seeing more, as opposed to democracy, we're seeing more hypocrisy than anything. That's right. Especially in the evangelical church. And I believe that's really what's turning people off.
Yeah.
Is the flip-flopping, is the, lashing themselves on to platforms that benefit their already personal beliefs, and then stamping the moniker or the name of Christianity on it. And it really has nothing to do with, there's nothing Christ-like about it. Like, how is hate attached to Christianity? How is not loving the stranger? How is not caring for the orphan or for children? How is not doing that attached to Christianity? And so we're seeing so much hypocrisy. And, when you talk about the Paula Whites and, all of them, think about this. These are people who are, Paula White is his spiritual advisor. You know what I mean? So imagine.
She's the one who gave him credit, quote unquote, credibility to the evangelical church.
Right.
She's the one who testified that he came to Christ under her watch, even though he's been in an interview said that he can't remember ever asking God for forgiveness. But I'm going to put that aside. Go ahead.
Or even needing forgiveness.
Needing, right? Yeah.
Exactly.
But imagine having someone in your ear telling you that you are the chosen one. You know what I mean? And we don't know how much influence right-wing evangelicals are having on him. He is Donald Trump. He is who he is already. But what if they're making it worse? And I believe they are. They're literally saying, and they're causing whole segments of the church and whole segments of this country to not believe in the democracy of this election. And it's the same thing replaying over again, delegitimizing the bat that's going to cause doubt in the minds of 70 million people potentially over the course of the next 4 years. This is deliberate, and I've been saying it for the longest. Donald Trump is not stupid, for he's not dumb. He's very deliberate. He's very calculated. And so I'm praying for this country, and I'm praying for the church.
Okay. Mark.
Well, first, let me join my Biden supporters and say YMCA. Okay? I'm going to say YMCA with my Biden supporters. All right. So, I just had to get that out. But I just want you guys to understand, I'm enjoying this, and everybody, from the evangelical side all the way down. But, I know I'm a sports guy, and I think about in sports, they birthed replay into the game of sports. And one thing that it takes the controversy out of any call that's made. And I'm thinking about that right now with this election. And when I think about, and I know some of you guys may think about it, but when you challenge a play, there's always two sides of it. One team is like, I know that's a catch. I know I didn't go out of bounds. So that's how we sitting right now. Let them look at the replay. You know what I'm saying? Let them figure it out. But it's gonna really be definitive that it's called correctly, and it's really gonna make that person that calls that challenge flag look little foolish. So I just say to your point, and I think Apostle Hunt said it right. I think this is a time to take something that was meant for evil to turn it around for good. And I think that challenge flag is, throw it on the field, but we're gonna win this challenge. And I think it's, we're gonna have that swag with us as we walk. We got this, and 74 million people are with us that voted the same way, So I think that's where it's at.
Okay.
Can I bring up one more point?
Okay.
I another thing that surprised me was that, and I don't know, maybe somebody can correct me if I'm wrong. Hopefully I'm wrong. But if I'm not mistaken, research shows that President Trump got 5 million more votes than last year.
Yes.
So that's the thing that, I'm
4 years
glad
ago,
that-
his first election. Right.
And I'm like, how is 5 million more? How is it that 5 million more people, even though he lost, still voted for the right-wing, evangelicals, but just 5 million more people, cast their ballot in honor of, that just blew me away.
I remember watching, and as the electoral votes were coming in, and it was like, the whole night it was, and I'm like, why isn't Biden running away with this thing?
Yeah.
And it really grieved me because what we're seeing and what we saw was a picture of the country, as a snapshot of the country, and how the country's belief system was being displayed right before our very eyes. And it really grieved me to see that it was so close for so long,
Well, it just really showed you what was on people's minds. That's really what it showed you.
Yeah.
And listen, and I was going to say, and let's be real. If it wasn't for the pandemic, he gets reelected. Like, don't get it twisted.
Don't get it twisted.
Right.
If it's not for that pandemic, he gets reelected. There's a segment of this country's population that is just transactional. They don't care who the person is. They don't care their mindset, their attitude, their language, their whatever. It is, if my taxes get lowered, if people who I don't care about are punished and I'm good, I'm good. And that's what I saw. That's how I took it. And if it wasn't for the death toll and his mismanagement of the pandemic, where you had 60 and over Caucasians dying and from this pandemic, and then the impact on the finances of the suburban women, he's reelected. I mean, and handily gets reelected if it wasn't for the pandemic. So
yeah. Michael, I want to hear from you. I know that you're kind of like on standby what you're doing, so I know your time may be limited. Let me hear from you, and then I want you to actually segue into that point that you made about, because someone, I think actually Matthias started us out talking about the evangelicals in the church, and your point is somewhere, one of the points you want to bring is kind of related.
Right. Well, good evening, everybody, and appreciate you having me on again. Glad to be amongst the brethren again. It's all good, always good. It's interesting because not only did the stat that Matthias brought up about 5 million more voted for Trump, but if you even look closer at those demographics, I believe it was by 5 or 6 additional percentage points, white women voted for Trump higher than last year, which when you really think about it is just insane. But a lot of this country, people have mentioned here and there that we're going towards a cold civil war. And I feel like the election proved that on so many levels, not only naturally from a political standpoint, but also like spiritually from the church's standpoint. Like never more did it ring true, Dr. King's words, that the most segregated time in America is a morning, Sunday afternoon service. Because when you honestly look at it, and it's amazing to me because you look at Kenneth Copeland's viral video, you look at Paula White's video. Let's be honest on where their name to fame came from. Off of the backs of Black congregants.
That's right.
I'm only 31 years old, but I say this all the time, and I feel like God allowed me to see certain things for a reason. I'll never forget, growing up in Chicago, listening to James Dobson, because he had a kids ministry. WNBI had a children's channel, and we were well connected with, you know, some of the talent there. Kadesh was a personality on there every once in a while on the weekends because they loved his radio voice even back then. You know, it was around the time and James used to let him do announcements and stuff like that. So they're like, oh my God, he sounds so proper. So long story short, we were in that crowd, especially being homeschooled as well. Like we were really in that crowd where, you know, James Dobson, Focus on the Family. Yeah, Jay Sekulow, he was big as far as the legal defense of homeschoolers back then. Paula White, Jessamine Franklin. I could go on and on. It wasn't just Billy Graham and his son. Like there was a whole network of people back then that were honestly, you know, supposedly there for the Lord's work. And we don't see color and we don't, you know what I'm saying? The whole nine. And I'll never forget when they first came to the White House. I was there that day when they first came to the White House to lay hands on Trump. All those people I just mentioned. And they totally ignored. And I'm not saying God can't forgive at all. But like I was mentioning last night to somebody, Trump literally says, I feel like I don't need forgiveness. I feel like I haven't done anything that warrants forgiveness. So no, I've never asked. Forget all the mistakes he made about what Bible chapters are where and all that stuff. But he literally said, that's the basis of Christianity. We were supposed to ask for forgiveness and believe in our hearts that God raised him from the dead and we'll be saved. So I know I'm going around the way, but I'm saying all that to say, it's like it's come full circle where this is literally a cold civil war. Like you have half of Christians who believe the Bible one way, and another half who they don't care. Cult of personality is almost like he's their new Christ in a way. So I was sharing with Annette earlier, like it's amazing because even leading up to the election, I was looking at little things, little examples. There's I'm sure you all heard about the Kirk Franklin situation.
Dove Awards, that's right.
Yeah, amongst them. And you know, that was a big deal because people were like, you know, don't you know who basically pays your bills, who buys your records? It's not just black folks. It's the white Christian world as well. You know, and then I looked at another guy that I've been a fan for a long time. He doesn't call himself Christian hip hop, but that's what he's labeled as. The guy by the name of Lecrae. Multi-platinum and Grammy Award winning brother. Born and raised in Houston, but he spent a lot of his time in Atlanta. Now, he's been part of that Atlanta civil rights struggle. You know what I'm saying? It's not just T.I. and some of those guys that are becoming woke. Like, that entire music industry, Killer Mike, all those guys down there are going through a greater awakening politically. And he's been part of that right there with them. Who was the first people on his back? He just made a little bit of a notice. I think one of his tweets said it would be great if the evangelical, he said, what if the Christians who want to reduce the number of abortions supported funding health care for women, dealt with systematic racism that creates poverty for women of color, and address the income gap between white people and people of color? What if they address that with the same intensity? He just asked the question.
Wow.
Didn't come down any lines or anything like that. Do you know how much hate mail that guy? He basically got the shut up and dribble LeBron response from Christians, not from, you know, networks and, you know, TV pundits. He got it from people who, you know, I'm saying worship on Sunday morning. So I'm saying that to say it's almost like what type of description that it made me think when I was talking to Annette earlier. What type of description does the Christian church have for us? You know what I'm saying? They love it when we play. They love fast fingers. They love drums. You know what I'm saying? Oh man, you perform, dude. I felt that in my spirit. Like all that kind of stuff. But when we want to speak our minds, it's a shut up and dribble. That's what came to light for me this week more than anything else. You know, I've never seen I did some more digging and research with Kenneth Copeland's situation. I didn't know he had full 5-day election day coverage, like literally a news desk that was bringing live updates. Who does that? What preacher? You can spend that amount of time helping homeless people in your city, helping corona victims. You could spend, and let's be honest, where did he get that money from? Where did that come from? All right. Of this, thank you. So I'm that's my.
No, but you
said a whole lot.
bring up a good point about like the 5-day news coverage and everything, because one of the big things that the evangelical church also talks about is how BLM is now not just a saying, but it's a political arm now too. Like some kind of way that makes it, that demonizes it, because I mean, I don't know how you bring about change without governance and without actually implementing policies. But at any rate, and they talk about how, see, no, now it's political, and yet you'll still take your same funds from church service on Sunday and all your other things, and you'll have a political thing. So is it the same criteria? Is the evangelical church now a political arm?
You know what though, even with the BLM stuff, when we have to be mindful of how demonic now. For me, even if you don't look at Black Lives Matter, not to take it to this, but if you don't look at Black Lives Matter as an organization or a political arm, it's an idea.
Right.
So if I start talking about the fact that it's political and all these things and all these elements and layers of it now, that there's something wrong with it, and start picking it apart, then now what I do is I erase the whole idea of it. So now I'm erasing the idea that Black Lives Matter.
That's right.
For me, I think that's really what the intent is.
Exactly. It's always been, it's just an excuse to do that. And not to, take us in a different direction than that, but just to talk about, once again, the example we were talking about, hypocrisy being exposed, how you can take someone who is a preacher, and he'll do political coverage for 5 days. The things that he does is considered political, is considered church work. Yet you could take another movement organization and then you can brand it political or brand it some other way to delegitimize it. And it's not even as politically connected and involved as your organization that your church is. And so it's just, once again, just showing, how people view things.
Ooh-wee. Okay. This is how y'all jump right in. Okay. Let's see. I did not recognize names that are here on Facebook Live, but I do appreciate you. There's a comment here from Katie Lowe. She says, just because they're in the church doesn't mean they're Christian. Churches are big businesses. And that's something to think about, because you have to understand, churches have to understand, we're not just being displayed for ourselves. You have people that are not church, people that are not saved, who are watching all of this. Mm-hmm. It almost kind of confuses them, if you will. Nicole says Black Lives Matter versus Black Money Matters. Big difference. The love of money equals the root of evil. I see you, Pastor CC, Danielle, Will Steps, Lynette, I'm sorry, Mother Knight. I know your name on Facebook is Charlotte, but Mother Knight, thank you for watching. Lante Atkins, Brandy is on. I did mention Nicole Diatris is on LP, Eric Clanton, Bryant. Auntie San is on, Deacon Greg, I see you, Yolanda Carter, Jean is on, Let's see, Trenda Fry, Janetta Franklin, Pastor Cece, hello. I'm Mariah Jacobs, I see. And there's some names here on the watch party as well. Hey, Angela, we appreciate you. The comment on the watch party from Greg Owens is absolutely, absolutely, pandemic defeated President Trump. He didn't see that coming. Absolutely correct. Without the pandemic, he wins second term. That is the concluding factor. Let's see, kind of segue into talking about, it's still dealing with the church, the hypocrisy or whatever you want to speak to, maybe what Mike said or Elder Purnell said. Give us your thoughts.
I was thinking about in John 12, when Jesus was meeting with his disciples for one of the final times, and there was the, I think it was Mary that took ointment out and started to wash the feet of Jesus. And Judas got upset and was basically saying, why was this ointment not sold for 300 pence and given to the poor? And then Jesus said, let her alone. Against the day of my bearing hath she kept this. For the poor always ye have with you, but me you won't have always. Basically, why he was saying this is because Judas was questioning the usage of the ointment, not because he cared about the poor, but because he was stealing the money. And I think in these situations, just like in this example, for those of you who are watching, it's John 12, starts right around the 4th or 5th verse. People will tell on themselves. Their true intentions, their true motives will come out. I think that's one of the things that I'm most interested to see is in the ways that people tell on themselves. There have been a lot of people that have been playing both sides of the fence, or even just saying things one way but doing other things behind, the curtain. I think people will reveal their true intentions, especially now.
They say if somebody shows you who they are, believe them. You got to believe them. Build back better. I believe this is Biden's slogan. Is that right? Build back better.
Is it?
Oh, gentlemen.
I ain't heard that.
Wow. Go look it up. It is. All right. Listen.
You know what? We were so concerned.
And his slogan could have been "Buy Ford" for all we cared. It didn't matter.
Oh my goodness.
And I'm actually glad you said that, that it didn't matter. Because my next question, now, it's been said, and we've heard it a lot, that a lot of the votes rather, were for Biden simply because they wanted 45 out. Not necessarily that Biden had everything that they wanted or what have you. With that being said, do you know maybe some of the promises, if you will, that Biden has laid out that may have attracted you or others to even vote for him?
Well, I guess I'll go first. So, I'll be transparent. I'll speak for myself. My vote was just an anti-Trump vote. It wasn't for if the only other option would have been my dog Mitt, I would have voted for my dog. I'm just being, to me, when you look at leaders, sometimes when it comes with leaders, it almost doesn't even matter what their policy, and it does. Policy does matter, where you stand on certain things matter, but attitude, the atmosphere that you set for your organization. People talk, Brother Marcus was talking about sports earlier. When you look at the Houston Astros and their cheating scandal, where they were banging on the drums. And this is still the same organization that was harassing female reporters. This is the same organization where the president and the head of the organization who came in, who's now the GM, who's now suing the owner of the team, has set this atmosphere of we're sharks, we're going to kill, steal, whatever it takes to win. Alpha male, shut up women, go cook, let these men go to work. Like, that was the attitude that he brought into the organization. And that mentality filtered all the way down. And you saw how it impacted that organization. Yes, they ended up winning the World Series because of how aggressively they did things in terms of building their minor leagues and, things like that. But then they got the other side of it too. Cheating, there's about 4 or 5 different things that happen. So in my case, I'm looking at what's happening in this country, and Trump didn't bring this stuff into this country. It was already here. He just made it worse. He just, disrupted the norm. He just, ripped off all the pretenses and then inflamed people's pre-existing biases and feelings that agreed with. I do like his platform on police reform. I also do like the fact that he does not want to defund the police. That's something that I also agree with. I also like the fact that he is looking to reestablish the Dreamers program and do a path of citizenship for the Dreamers. I also prefer the way, based upon his past experience, how he performed or how he handled international relations with other countries. So those are just some things that so I still want to be informed, things that I still agreed with, but yeah, it didn't matter. There was a culture in this country and an attitude and
I'm thinking through the question of, like you said, what kind of transpired that presence with Biden. One thing that I'm thinking about, though, is I'm going to appreciate President Trump. And you guys got to listen to me because y'all looking at me crazy. When we had, Obama for 8 years, I think when I'm 35 now, so I was about 27, 28. And what happened is you think that the fight is over. So you really don't continue to push. And then when we saw, Hillary versus Trump 4 years ago, you was like, oh, we good. And we really didn't get woke up, and that kind of slapped us in the face a little bit, and it made us understand these last 4 years where we were able to really dig in, understand our right. And I will say that even when I was at the polls, and I had a poll right down the way from my house, and I was just seeing in droves my generation coming out and really voicing that vote. So I just want to appreciate Trump, even if they don't like John say, some people it wasn't so much a pro-Biden, but more just anti-Trump type vote. But no matter what, I feel like it really woke us up. My generation, I'm 35, and my generation really now knows. I had guys like, man, what is an electoral vote? And I'm like, where have you been for the last, you know what I'm saying? It's electoral college, is, this and that. So, but to be honest, those are the things that I feel like I appreciate him for, that because the fight was and it's still beginning. The fight is never over. And I think when we saw a black man get in presidency, you kind of put your guard down a little bit and just say, oh, we will be all good. So I just take it from that standpoint. And I think we really came out, and that difference, because, my brother Matthias talked about how much more Trump got. Had we not come out and got more, and there was more Latino votes and everything like that. But at the end of the day, we still came with it. And I just feel like that President Trump woke us up in the right way.
All right. That's a good point. And thank you for explaining that fully so we can understand what you meant. All right, Matthias.
I think I'm gonna bring up 3 quick points, but I would say one of them is what John has said, and that's his relationship with international relationships. And you think about it, over the course of 45's presidency, there have been world leaders that have literally just been laughing at us. You know, you got Kim Jong-un, and you got Putin, and you got the prime minister. People over the course of his terms have literally been laughing at us and mocking us. And this, but right now, the world has really lost respect for us. So that's one of the reasons that I felt like President-elect Joe Biden would be successful at in rebuilding those relationships and rebuilding those connections. I can't remember. I read an article just recently. I can't remember what country it was, but the day Saturday when everything was made official, one country or one prime minister said, now things can get back to normal. Now the office of the president can get back. I can't remember what it was, but I thought that article was real nice. And now I feel like the international world is really respecting the United States. The second thing is that I felt like with him bringing Kamala Harris on board, he really wanted to hit a different demographic. More specifically, the black vote or the minority vote, but I think more specifically that black vote. We have been the backbone of the voting process as well too. And you think about it, how the numbers really kind of tie together. It's really predicated a lot of times off what African American vote is doing. So I think, and then now following Kamala Harris lately, she's really been on it in regards to really connecting with a certain demographic. And she made a post earlier today about connecting with Black women. I've never seen that type of direct, I'm trying to connect with you all and I'm trying to make sure things and policies are in place for women. Another thing she said on her speech, and she was just saying how she wants to inspire the young girls and how this won't be the last time that this vice presidency will be held by a woman. I thought that was a great move on Joe Biden to do that as well. And then the other thing was just recently, President-elect rolled out a COVID-19 force. And I thought all of that is just like he's rolled out this task. They literally have a task force right now that's dedicated and it's going to be allocated towards defeating this virus. So I think hitting the ground running before they even started the inauguration process, I think this is great. So those are a couple of things that allow me to, really make that selection real easy, as well as I wanted to be an anti-Trump vote as well for me.
At least you're honest. Devera, thanks for watching. I appreciate that comment though, Matthias. Great points. Kanan Carlton is on. Gary Lowe. Let's see. LP says true. He took away the sugar-coated cover. Other dysfunctional activities in America, he made it more noticeable. Yeah, I would agree, LP. That is definitely true. You get to see who these people really are. Nicole says Trump is like that unmerciful teacher when we were in school. That teacher that will fail you with joy. Oh, yeah. That teacher who you knew better than to take a gamble with. He made people get their stuff together, go back to school, do whatever you need to do to level up for survival and independence. Nicole, I can give you 1,000 likes for that. I totally agree with that. Apostle, I'm gonna throw the ball to you.
You know what? Can I ask the question after I add to what these guys were saying?
You're my co-host.
I saw a post, and I can't remember who the guy was. He was a Caucasian guy, and he kind of summed up the last 4 years of Trump's presidency, why he was so bad for the country. And I kind of jotted some things down from memory. He said it's not just that he was a racist or he inspired racism. It's not just that he mobilized and encouraged white supremacists. It's not just that he separated children from their parents and didn't reconnect them. It's not just that he was a xenophobe. It's not just that he was against immigration, the immigration of Black and brown people. It's not just that he mishandled the worst pandemic in 100 years, leading to the death of over 200,000 people. It's not just that he called COVID-19 a hoax, and fought against science, even the science of global warming, but it lies greed over humanity. So basically, all this stuff is not just that he felt this way, but he made everybody else that followed him comfortable feeling this way, and that this is a new accepted norm. That now I can come out of the shadows, I can come out of my cave, and feel okay with the way that I feel, because after all, the president of the United States feels this way. And just like, Pastor John and Matthias were saying, look at even the flip side of Trump and his handling with other leaders in other countries. Look at the ones that turned him on. You got Putin, you got Kim Jong-un. These are tyrants. These are authoritarians. These are the ones that kind of turned him on, the ones that he wanted to work with and be friends with. So it really gives you an inside look to his character, and watch this, and who he wanted to be to America. That's who he wanted to be. And so it's really amazing to me. But the question that I have, and we can go back to the debate, the first debate, the stand back and stand by. Stand back and stand by. How did that make you feel as a Black man in this country today? And have you, based off of that feeling, have you done anything since then till now based off of that comment?
That's awesome. That's a great question. I think Matthew wants to know who wants to answer? Go ahead.
I will jump in.
Something with your audio.
You got me?
Now I do.
Okay. It didn't tell me anything that I didn't already know. I think it was sort of this thing where he would hit a new low every day and people would be surprised and outraged again and again and again and again. And I'm just one that chooses to reserve my outrage for things that surprise me. And that wasn't surprising. Did it make things clear, nationally clear? Like, so everybody understands, even the individuals that don't see it the way that we see it, don't understand the history of this country, even down to sundown towns and different things like that. How do you deny that? This wasn't for me. This wasn't to make things clearer for me. Things are very clear for me. I don't know how many more times I needed to see Black people dying in the street to make it as clear as it needed to be for me. I think that was for the willfully ignorant.
Wow. Okay. Who else jumping in? Is that you, Mark?
I mean, I'm with you, Bub, or Matthew. I'm sorry. I think at the end of the day, it's not something that is a new feeling. But Apostle, you did say something in there as far as how do you respond? And I think is when I look at a leader, I think my expectations were already low, so I didn't expect too much. When you think, I think John even talked about how you're supposed to hold yourself at that status. And when I think about leadership, you think about servant leadership, and or you think about being served. And we had someone in office that wanted to be served. A lot of the policies that were implemented was to benefit his businesses. You know what I mean? So, and his status and where he's at. So he's doing things to be served. And if you had a servant mentality, you would understand the needs of the people versus just going after the people thinking that we're going to act, maniacal or anything like that. So I think at the end of the day, it's not unexpected because my expectations weren't as high, but I do agree that it definitely is something now that I know what I've already started doing is getting like even a group of us together weekly to where we're strengthening each other. My brother, Matthew, even Mike D, we're all on, because it's not just a let's come together and talk about sports. It's let's come together so we can figure out strategies to be better men. It's to come together to build ourselves spiritually. It's to build ourselves as husbands, as fathers, because we're going to be the group that can shift the narrative. Because this description that you have us in, oh, I got you. You know what I'm saying? I'm going to take it to another level. So that's my action that I speak to on that question, Apostle Hunt.
All right.
Yeah, that was a powerful question, man. As soon as Apostle said it, I was like, dang, I wish I wasn't on the clock right now. I'll really say some stuff. But all I'm gonna say is this. First to the first question about over the last 4 or 5 years, I felt like Biden equally, how much he did or not is fine, but that speech hit me when he literally left out. I don't know if y'all caught this. He talked about how wide his coalition was that elected him. He said Democrats, Republicans came out strong for him. And let's remember, any other person, even Kamala, if she had won the nomination, she probably wouldn't have gotten as much Republican support. So Democrats, independents, Republicans, and then he said, I hope I'm quoting him right. He said, white folks, Hispanic folks. He said liberals, conservatives, gays. He went through the whole list, but he left out blacks for a minute. And I thought to myself, dang, was that a little slip up? Dang. Oh, Joe, oh, well, I mean, we know. I'm thinking in my head. And then out of nowhere, his next line was, and the people who got me through the ebbs of my entire campaign, and I would not be here without you, the African-American community. I could have cried there, y'all. Like, for real. I could have, because for real, when you think about it, from the nomination point, it was for black folks in South Carolina that put him over the top to get the nomination. Right. You know what I'm saying? And I feel like, to the other question of, like I said, what has been done, as many dog whistles as we've heard from the other side over the last 4 or 5 years, it was good to just see, in a lot of ways, even what Obama couldn't express, because let's be honest, he was black himself, so he couldn't look or appear to be giving too much to his own community in some ways. So whether it was his fault or not, that's just the way it was. So to see Biden actually giving the black community a pat on the back, not just in words, but you got to remember in deeds too. Kamala Harris was not his first female of color on his staff. He has them permeated all throughout his campaign. They're in the transition, and they will be part of his cabinet as well. Look for a lot more Kamalas, you know what I'm saying, coming in his administration. I'm saying on to say the support that he's garnered from black people, he wasn't afraid to say thank you. And going to the second part of the question, like Marcus said, he wasn't talking to us. He was talking directly to his people, which again is so shocking as to why even more people after that came. Now, I wasn't shocked about what he said there, but what I honestly was surprised and just made me think about was after that is where you start to get more of the black hip hop support, not just Crazy Kanye, but that's when you got Lil Wayne and the whole Ice Cube debacle and all those other guys started just piling on almost, it seemed like. And that's what I was wondering, like for real, where, we talk about the description, for real, of black men in America, like it was like he was making a real play for that. So I honestly feel like that's something that was part of the election that we still need to do a little bit of an autopsy on, honestly, because when you look at some of the numbers in some of those key battleground states like Florida, Trump got bigger support from certain minority groups. It was still overall abysmal. It was still like in the high 80 percentile of people voting against him, but still he made a lot of headway than what he got 4 years ago. And that just goes to show why were Hispanics voting for him more this time around? Why were certain black men, like they said, black men more than black women voted for Trump both years, both elections. So why is that? As far as what I did, I will say I can appreciate the young men's group that we kind of started since then. That has really helped on the spiritual side. On the natural side, I gotta protect my family, so I've just been going out and making sure I stay sharp, if y'all know what I mean.
Gotcha. We got you, which I think is where Apostle was going with that.
Hey,
I know a little bit about.
you know, we gotta next.
For now.
Yeah, I agree with Matthew. I wasn't surprised. This is, I thought about the remember the old movie A Few Good Men with was it Tom Cruise and Jack Nicholson?
Yeah.
And the big scene at the end of the movie where, Tom Cruise is like, Jack, he finally, that general character, he wants to tell everybody. Like he's, chomping at the bit. He wants the world to know, I did it. I don't care. I did it right. It's mine. Shut up. Let me do my thing, blah, blah. And he kind of set him up. And when I was watching that whole first debate, it was like this airing of grievances. Like Trump was finally like, I'm just tired and I'm yelling at everybody. I'm mad at everybody. I'm blowing every whistle. I'm doing everything I can. I'm going to throw this just angry, hissy fit, it was just, and so it didn't shock me. It was just, it was, Trump's going to Trump, and, as for me, I just had to, I just knew what I was going to do, how I was going to vote. I made sure that my son, who was away at college, filled out his, request and received his ballot, down south and got his ballot in, in the mail. I had him make sure he got it done a couple weeks in advance so we wouldn't, if the mail truck got lost, it would still get here in time.
Right.
And, just, made up in my mind that, I was going to do what I was supposed to do. And hopefully everybody else would do what they were supposed to do. And, we wouldn't have to deal with it like this.
Okay. Good stuff.
One more point. I didn't fully answer Apostle's question when he talked about what are you going to do? And it really coincides with what Marcus was saying. I know I was talking when we first got on, Annette, about not relinquishing opportunities, no matter how bad the situation is, always seeing the opportunity. And this year has been an opportunity for outreach, and not necessarily outreach on public platforms, but outreach like as much as I can. Hey, I need to come see you, get as close as I can to you, understand what your issues are, what you're struggling with. There are a lot of young men and young women that started college this year. And can y'all imagine starting college this year?
Yes.
I mean, it's already tough. It's already difficult. It's already a culture shock. But can you imagine starting college this year? And I've just been, so on fire about making sure I'm getting in front of and being as visible and contacting as much as possible the young ones, making sure they're okay, making sure I can give the advice. One called me last week on FaceTime in the middle of the day. I'm working, I answer. He just asked me to pray. And like, we just have to make sure that, as you said, Apostle, what are you going to do now? We have to make sure, not only for ourselves and for what's going on in our homes, but there's so many young ones that need our influence, because all they're getting online through the news is what Apostle mentioned, which is just terrible, terrible showing. So to try and get as much good information to them to keep them going, to keep them encouraged has really been something that I've wanted to do this year to kind of combat all of the negativity.
I love it. That's that methodical thinker there. But you have to do that. You know what I mean? You have to. I love it. I love it. I'm gonna let Apostle. You have another question, right?
Yeah. Matthew, man, you heavy, man. The Bible says it. We wrestle not against flesh and blood, but against principalities and powers, rulers of the darkness of this world, spiritual wickedness in high places. There's a lot of things that we have to remove our fight physically, so to speak, and attack spiritually. Jesus said it this way, that my kingdom is not of this world. If it were of this world, my angels would come and fight. And so a lot of what we're seeing now, even with the evangelical church kind of latching on to this civil war type thing in the streets, that's their way. That in their mind, the United States is the kingdom of God, and it's not. It's spiritual. And so there's some things that we got to do spiritual, but there's some things in the natural that we have to do because we are the gatekeepers of our family and the protectors of our family. And it's just knowing that balance, the proper balance between the two. But the question that I wanted to add to that, and that's coming after something that Mike said, it just kind of inspired me to ask this question, because one of the things that Biden said in that speech, and I was moved by it too, my brother. I was moved by it, and that was a cliffhanger. I know what you were talking about. That was a cliffhanger, and then he finally brought up. He was setting us up to bring up Black people, Black folks, and the importance of Black people. And he said this. He said, "I will not forget you." Like I really latched on to that. I will not forget you. Okay, so how do we make sure that that's just not a political statement? How do we make sure that that's not just a political rhetoric, that you didn't say that out of your emotions, the energy on that stage didn't make you say that? How do we hold your feet to the fire? And if you do forget about us, what is our response next time around?
Well, if I could jump in, I got a Black wife, and then what I'm gonna say is he got a Black vice president. So, I'm just saying, you know what I'm saying? Yeah. I mean, and I got a lot of Caucasian friends. They my guys. They know if they listening right now, they can come to my house right now. But they can only be around me for so long until they know who Black people are. And Biden has been around Obama too long for him not to know that how important we are. But that's a great question. I know I kind of threw a little joke in there, but no, he's kind of put himself in a situation like Kamala ain't gonna have that. You know what I'm saying? I'm just saying, like I just, I got the wife upstairs. I already know how that is. When you start moving to the wrong way, she's gonna get you right on back on track. So I think that's one way. Obviously, we have to do our part to keep him, accountable and into that piece. But I just wanted to make that, like, he has people. His chamber is strong to keep him in line. That's just my opinion.
Yeah.
Good point. Because we are not to be messed with. All right, who wants to go?
Yeah, I think to me that was the biggest takeaway. He took some time in that speech. He talked about when his campaign was at its lowest, how the African American vote saved his campaign, and basically he wrote it. That was Georgia, that was Philadelphia, and
Detroit.
Yeah, Detroit. Milwaukee, as far as Wisconsin. It was huge. I think that one thing that we as a people have to be honest about is we talk about the Clippers coach at the time and talked about, you know, how we keep loving the country and the country doesn't love us back. And that's something that you can say about the Democratic Party. I mean, we vote en masse. Democrat. That's the party. That's what we're going to vote with. And how many times, were there little things or lip service? Thank you, this, or you'll give a person power. So, I made so-and-so my, chief advisor, right? It'll be one person, not, the African American community, that gets it. I think we have an opportunity to look at things that will help our community at large. I think that there are things like police reform is something that we can hold him to that will help our community at large. Education reform can help our community at large. These are, big things, right? That also impact things in social justice. And so we have to say, listen, you said it. Mm-hmm. We need to see it. Yes. And if we don't see it, you thought it was bad and he didn't get that blue wave and get Congress in 2020. Imagine what you're going to be up against in 2 years if we don't see it. Because if we don't show up for midterms, he'll have the full Congress will be, Republican, and he won't be able to get anything. So if you want a Congress that's going to continue to work with you and help you, then we're going to need to see something in the next 2 years. Mm-hmm. I mean, we have to be strong about that. We can't just say, especially in this election of all elections. I feel like so many times we're like, well, he can only do so much. We talk about like Obama, well, he was black, so he can only do so much because then it would look like he was doing too much. And so now we have someone, right, who's not black, who can help everybody. We just have to demand it. We have to demand it in our votes. We have to demand it in our actions. And then we have to be willing to walk away if we don't see it.
And you said something. It's not about them putting someone in the cabinet. That's not the answer for us.
That's right.
So guess what? Kamala Harris is not a gift to us. Mm-hmm. Kamala Harris is deserving of that.
Oh, absolutely.
Of that position. But don't present her to us like you just did something for us.
Right. Like she was the payoff.
Like she was the payoff. Exactly. Right. That's what I heard when you were talking.
Ooh, good points. That's right. Keep talking about the black woman. Build her up. I love it. Go ahead, Mike.
If I can just chime in, because I get what was being said, and I agree with a lot of it. I just wonder sometimes, too, with the black community, if our expectations are realistic sometimes. And here's why I say that, because everything that you get politically is not going to come with a big fat label on the front of it saying, here's the black plan, here's the black economic, you know what I'm saying? Here's the black education. And I get it to a certain extent. We bend over backwards for America all the time, and we don't get the recognition that other minorities or just other groups in general get. I totally understand that. But sometimes on the same token, it's almost like, what is our expectations? That's all I'm asking. And I agree. Sometimes there needs to be hard consequences if things aren't met. But at the same time, sometimes we look at, other people or other situations, and I think that goes to your point of we don't just want a figurehead. We don't just want a cabinet position, but okay, beyond that, what do we want? We exactly, articulate that. I feel like in this election season, because it was so fraught with Trump. You know what I'm saying? So in a lot of ways, Biden wasn't fully, he wasn't able to even get through half of it. I mean, between Trump and COVID, the debates that we did have were, you really been delving deeply into some of those other issues. So I don't know. You know, let's also, all I'm saying is let's just make sure our expectations are realistic as well.
Right. Well, so we already know he's laid out two things that he's going to start day one on January 20th. One is the COVID plan, the COVID task force, which he's already putting together. They obviously can't officially do anything until he takes office. I mean, they can research and start, planning, but they won't be able to enact anything until January 20th. So that's there. And he's already talked about the Dreamers and the path of citizenship. Okay. So my thing is, something that matters to the African-American community needs to be the third thing out of his mouth. Like that's where I'm at. Like it, and like you said, Mike, it doesn't have to be the black this plan or whatever. If you came and you said that we're doing police reform and we're going to do training, we're going to actually put some teeth that was set up under Trump. Let's say we put some teeth to the National Registry. Your police department won't receive any federal funds unless you submit reports for your officers to the National Registry, and you pull from the National Registry backgrounds of any police officer that you hire, for example, right? If you're going to start putting plans in place to come up with some type of licensure where police officers, there's a minimum level statewide of training that police officers have to have, that things that are put in place so that they're being trained about policing in minority areas and getting rid of bias and understanding bias in policing. Now, you mentioned those. Police reform helps everybody, but because we are disproportionately impacted by, African Americans are disproportionately killed, being unarmed African Americans are disproportionately killed. We fit the description, all of these things. If you put that helps us as a community. If you do things that are education reform, education helps our community. We're because of low income and things like that, and private schools not always being options. Some neighborhoods don't even have good charter school options. So education reform would impact our community. So I want to hear something. He's already mentioned two things, and he said he wouldn't forget us. He didn't make the promise to the Dreamers during his speech. He didn't make, the promise to others. So I want to see something, I want to see that third thing out of his mouth, for him to start to do it. And once again, he's going to face, to Mike's point, opposition because he did not capture Congress. But you have to start, that's negotiations, right? I have to start by here. And then if I get half of it, hey, he's fighting for it. Like, I'm cool with that. That's good. But you have to start by asking for something. So those are the things that I'm looking for, like right away. Those are things that, will help our community, but also help the nation. He doesn't have to come out and say, I'm going to put together a commission to look into reparations. Now, if he did that would be, wow, like, okay. He just dove into the deep end, but, so it doesn't have to be something like that. But yeah, that's how I look at it. I agree with Mike. We have to be reasonable, but you have to start by asking for something. And it's about that time. He's already mentioned some other stuff, so he can put us on that list any minute.
Do it. All right. Let's see here. We see our other panelist has joined us. I see you, Cornelius. Are you able to say something now, or do you want to wait till you get a little settled?
I can wait till I get settled. I just want to hear the conversation a little bit.
Okay. Well, I'm so glad that you joined us. Coach Corn is in the house. Let's see here. I am actually looking at a few comments here on the watch party. Adele says there are more Black men voting for Trump. 50 Cent Oh, 50, whatever. Lil Wayne, those celebrities. Don't y'all
Tell us
laugh?
how you really feel.
I'm very proper. No, those celebrities care more about tax brackets than actual lives that are at stake. Should a dangerous man like Trump stay in power? Ooh,
I agree.
Yeah, baby boo. All right.
what was that? Oh, yeah, okay.
Comment of the night.
Right, of course. Give her an award, right? All right, let's see. And she also said here that Trump said COVID is gone, so that tells you where his head is on the nation's health. Yeah, I agree. It was kind of ridiculous, his points talking about that. Made a lot of people very upset, and rightly so, because a lot of people lost family members and loved ones due to COVID. And his, what's the word I'm looking for? He wasn't compassionate after he supposedly was healed from COVID.
He was reckless.
What was that? Reckless? I think you're muted, but I think you said reckless.
Yeah, I said he was reckless after he contracted COVID.
Yeah, definitely. Definitely trying to make it seem like it wasn't exactly what it was. We knew what he was trying to do there. Tradana, I see you on. Phyllis Goodlow, Robin is on. Mother Knight said on here, we must make our local, state, and national reps know what our concerns are. Then he will sign on it because our congressperson is pushing our issues. All right, Mother Knight. She says, stay involved. Don't forget to watch and stay in the know about policies they are working on and the impact they will make on our destiny. And, that's good to hear from a mother of the church. Okay? Isn't it? I mean, I don't know what you guys think about that, but that excites me to hear her, giving that input there that way. So thank you, Mother Knight. Simon, we see you on. Carolyn Smith, Richard Nash, Sharna, Diamond, and these are names I didn't call earlier. Marcus is on as well. Marcus Hill. We appreciate you, young man. Now let's see. I really want to hear from Cornelius. You're gonna have to let me know when you get somewhere where you can kind of talk. From your last question today, did everybody answer Apostle's last question? Are you satisfied with that, Apostle Dion? What you got so far?
I am satisfied.
Okay. All right. I had here, youth pastor, you actually brought up, and I think we kind of touched on this a little bit about the first one, the African American support of Biden. All right. What about the other one, the second one you had? Did you touch on that about tribal thinking? You said tribal thinking?
Oh yeah, no. I think and I know this is gonna be unpopular, but I really, one of the big takeaways that I had from the election was the tribal thinking. We've had people for the past 4 years who like changed their signature line to hashtag not my president. Every who have voted against president-elect, and we're gonna have now it's gonna be the other side of that, right? Now, 4 years ago they were like, oh, we gotta come together now that it's over and this and that, and the left wasn't having it. And now that the left is won, you're gonna have 70 million people that's not gonna have it. So what we have to do is is our goal to win? Are we in some like death battle where, the 74 million have to prove the 70 million are wrong and evil and corrupt or whatever? Or is our goal to try to reach the hearts and the souls of those 70 million and to actually change those minds, to get them to see and to hear, the very topics that like what we're talking about on this program. The I fit the description. Is it to win or is it to change? And I think if it's to change, then everybody has to take a step back from these silos that we're in. Right now we've got this big controversy, or the right, Trump basically set up a position before he lost the election that said either he was going to win or there was going to be fraud. I mean, he said it. He said it 6 months ago. That basically he set the stage that if he lost, that means that there was something nefarious. I was watching, and I try to watch all the news channels, and I was watching Fox, and they were talking about how even the Fox, not the commentators, so, not the Tucker Carlsons and Hannity's and all those guys, but the actual news anchors were talking about how they couldn't report on any corruption because there hadn't been any, like nobody who they talked to would like sign an affidavit. I want to say yesterday was the first time that they found somebody. I think they found a mail carrier in Philadelphia that was willing to say that he heard somebody say something about backdating some votes or something like, backdating some postmarks or something on a handful of ballots. But like for a week, they were begging if anybody has anything, and nobody was saying anything. And I posted online about how if you look across the nation, and even in the state of Philadelphia, the election was up like 10%, 11%. We know that Biden received the most votes of any candidate ever, and then Trump received the second most votes of any candidate ever. Votes were up everywhere. And just to cut to the chase, when you look at Philadelphia, where they're accusing malfeasance, voting was not up by 10%. It was only up by 3%. And not only that, in Philadelphia, he did better, Trump, this year with the African-American vote than he did 4 years ago. Mm-hmm. And it's like, if somebody was going to cheat, they literally could have padded 5% more votes and just did blue right down the line. And actually, they lost all the other local elections. People actually took the time on their ballots to vote against Trump and then vote for the other Republicans. So if somebody was going to cheat in Philadelphia, they did a terrible job. Failed. They could have added like 2 million votes, and statistically, you wouldn't have noticed because the voting was so much less in Philadelphia than the rest of the state. And all of this information is from, I heard Rick Santorum, who's a Republican, talk about it. Kasich, who's a Republican, talk about it. I saw the stats on Fox News. But Trump has set up and fed into this tribal mentality where you can't even say something negative. So we have to get to a point where people step back and they don't call, Biden a hero. He's a man, who ran for office at a time like this. And you step back and you say, listen, we have to be able to work together. We have to be able to touch those hearts and those minds, or else in 4 years, Trump will be back. God forbid, we won't have a pandemic in 2024, right? And those same people are going to be, the rumor is he's going to start his own cable network, his own cable news network. So he's going to cut bait from Fox, and he's just going to have the Trump network 4 hours a day for 4 years.
Good God.
So if we don't get out of these silos where we just hear and see our point of view, and we don't take a step back and ask ourselves, why does rural white America feel like they're left behind? And we might say, listen, I might say as a black man, I could care less. I got enough problem trying to make sure that my 3 black boys grow up to be men. I have a legitimate case.
Yeah.
You know, I have ancestry of slavery. I've got redlining, redistricting. I've got, you know, all of these things. I've got my own situations, and that's legitimate. But is that going to fix the problem? Is my place to be right and to win, or is it to try to change people's hearts and minds? And so that was my big thing. I feel like now that, you know, quote unquote, we've won, and, you know, we have Biden, and we've got, you know, VP-elect Harris in place, and all of this is great, but what are we willing to do so that in 4 years, we're not worse off from where we're now? You know, are we willing to sit down and talk? Now, I'm not saying everybody has to. As a matter of fact, some people, I hope they don't, because they give people a piece of their mind and it won't help. But I don't know. I'm sorry. I talk for a while. I'll be quiet now.
Okay, well, no, that's a good point. Cornelius, I want to hear from you, because since you look like you're settled. Do you want to speak to that or something else that you want? Unmute your device.
Good evening, distinguished gentlemen. Of course, good evening, Miss Annette and Apostle Dion. So I appreciate you guys having me on. You know, Pastor John said it all. I mean, I think for me, I was just kind of thinking those same lines. Maybe not as deep as John was, but just, you know, what can we do to kind of bring some commonality? And I think that John made an excellent point about just causing change. For me, I was talking with my wife, and I think for me, it's just, you know, just trying to understand, okay, whether you're red or blue, we can make certain things just a human problem, a humanity problem. You know, that 230,000 Americans died is a human problem. That's not a red or a blue problem. You know what I'm saying? There were some Republicans that died. There were some Democrats that died because of the pandemic, you know, and I think that's the thing that as we're moving forward and going towards this new era with Biden, just trying to figure out, okay, can we at least empathize with each other? You know what I'm saying? You know, we may disagree fundamentally, but let's empathize. You know, I spent maybe an hour last night just kind of going back over the last elections and just listening to the Republican candidates who had lost in defeat. And just even in their concession speeches, you could tell that, you know, they all agree that, hey, we may not agree fundamentally on how the country should look, but the one thing, red or blue, we can agree is that we're still the United States of America. You know what I mean? And, you know, if you guys ever get a chance, listen to John McCain's 2008 concession, Obama being Arab and just making all type of crazy accusations about him. And even during his town meeting, which is his pro base, which is his base, he spoke to Obama's character and was like, you know, we may disagree fundamentally about how the country should be ran, but that's a decent man. That's a family man, you know. And if he became president, I would not be afraid of him becoming president. And I think that's the part where I'm like, we need to get back to that. You know, we may never come to, you know, you agreeing about my political point, and I may never agree with your political point, but we still should have some commonality of just human decency. And I think these last 4 years, we got away from that. You know, I asked my wife, like, what happened? I mean, literally, you can YouTube this stuff. Go 2000, 2008, 2012. Just look at the debates. The debates became unspeakable things. Even, you know, just the people that were representing their parties, I just think that we got away from the human element. And I hope we can return back to just empathize, you know, just really kind of understanding that, you know, people are dying while you guys are fighting about, you know, who's best and whose point of view is better. People are dying, you know, and I think we got to keep the main thing. You know, it's not red or blue. It's, hey, man, we got to get out this pandemic. We got to restore the economy. We got to get people back to working because, you know, no matter what, you know, we all live in this country and people are dying. You know, what is our future going to look like? So, yeah, I totally agree with, you know, I don't know if that's maybe the conversation. I hope I'm not arbitrarily speaking, but I think that's me. You know, I want to get back to just, hey, man, is life a red or blue state? You know, like, preservation of life. You know, I just want to, can we live? You know, like forget politics, can we live? So that's my point of view. I hope that answers the question.
It did. And actually, that was a perfect segue into what I'm going to do now. I'm going to actually set up this video I was sent. Because one of my last questions I was going to ask tonight was, again, well, this is really what the whole show was about on today. What now? This country is so divided. We know it. You know, they're calling it the divided states of America instead of united. But that's perfect what you guys were talking about unity, because that is definitely what we need. It's what's key. And I don't know, Michael, can you set this video up for me? Talk to us what this is about.
Sure. My brother and I, Kadesh, we blessed to we brought onto a recent project outside of the news world, where we were asked to come alongside of a new verse of the old American song or hymn, whatever you want to call it, "My Country 'Tis of Thee." A new verse was commissioned by a local music director and artist by the name of Nolan Williams Jr. He's of local renown in the DC area, but he also has some national renown. He's done a lot of things with Yolanda Adams, the National Symphony Orchestra, as well as the Philadelphia Philharmonic Orchestra. So he's got some great talent where he mixes the African American spiritual and historical music world with also the Americana world. But this particular piece here is amazing. We were on it on the video side, but when you listen to it musically and kind of see what the message is about unifying the nation, he actually wrote a new verse to the old hymn that actually speaks of transitioning peacefully. And it says, God, let our nation see our great democracy transition peacefully and let freedom ring. It was a quick video, but I thought it would nicely segue into like, how do we unify, honestly.
Okay, wonderful. I'm going to play this and then kind of get you guys your input on this.
From all the trees, sweet unity. God, let our nation see our great democracy transition peacefully. Let freedom ring.
Wow. Powerful. Powerful, powerful. Whew, my goodness. That was deep. I was all caught up. I'm sorry. What did you guys think? I love his voice too. I'm sorry, what did you guys think? All right, can I hear something? I see. What are you gonna say, Apostle?
You know, I got chills. I got chills, and it definitely speaks to the time and the season that we're in, and the hope that we have right now. And so I hope is that something that they're thinking about is that something that he just added, or they're thinking about adding it to that song?
Well, no, he added it. He's commissioned by a couple of like local organizations or whatever, but like, that message is important, not just because I helped produce it, but like honestly, like
that's a good reason too. You can toot your own horn.
Right. But I honestly, it hit me. We were on the steps of Lincoln Memorial filming it, and you know, I'm doing my thing, letting Kadesh do his thing or whatever, and the songwriter came to me and he was like, you know, we got to make sure we remember that. And I didn't think about this at first. You know, you think of the term transition peacefully, and you even saw the quote by Ronald Reagan, by the way. That was in Ronald Reagan's 1980 inaugural speech. He started off the inaugural speech talking about he called the transition of power, peaceful transition of power, in and of itself almost like a miracle. He said because no other country does it like America does. And when you really think about it, no matter who or what, what differences you have, to have something as monumental, it's not just here in Washington, D.C. The entire country goes through this transference of power. And it really is something to see when you really think about how it works. But anyway, the songwriter, Nolan, was telling me, he said, we really got to not only think about this from a government or political standpoint, but he said, we as a people, we got to figure out, and honestly, and I'm saying this, adding on to what he's saying, we as a church, we got to figure out how to transition peacefully, seriously. Because, this isn't just about a big White House or a Capitol building. Like, this comes down to my house. Every man, this kind of like I saw, Pastor John mentioned in the comments about like how he's never seen so many people just unfollow just for no reason. I went to a conservative Christian school, Liberty University. I can tell you how many people I've seen get into fights online this week alone. You know what I'm saying? What are we gonna do? I know I keep coming back to the church part, but I was born and raised in church. Like we're supposed to be the salt of the earth. We're supposed to be the leaders on some of this stuff, and we're fighting just as much or worse than the secular world. So I honestly the song is puts a powerful thought into music form, and I just felt like it was an important way of expressing that thought of transition peacefully, not just meaning political, but personally.
It's personal because the lack of it translates to all of our lives. Like the lack of peaceful transition of power can potentially affect us individually. It can come to my doorstep, especially the way that things are being played out now. And a couple of you guys mentioned it. He said it 6 months ago. He said it 4 years ago that he wouldn't accept the outcome of the election unless he won, and that he was, he said he was not committed to, telling people not to take to the streets and protest if he lost this election. And so it's really the fact that we're living in a time where that has to be said is like really sobering and jarring, but it's necessary. It's necessary.
Wow.
I wanted to say, from a musician's standpoint, music brings emotions. And as we talked about, you just said it brought chills. And it just kind of made me tie into Pastor John's question earlier, like, how do we change the hearts of 70 million to come against? And it really is, it may not be lip service that allows them to change, really get them to change. And I was listening to somewhere, and they said, it should be a change of the guard, but not change of God. And I think that's what we got to continue to remember is the consistency there. But then we take it to the musical side. I think we were just talking about that last night on, when the guys was together. We was talking about how, things are transitioning, and even the church and the music and how it's delivered now is different. And it's okay. It's a season for things that need. But when you need a breakthrough, when you need to get something through, there's a certain feel that you got to have. There's a certain delivery of that music that you got to have. So from a musician standpoint perspective, I would definitely say, Mike, y'all did a great job producing that. But I would definitely say that could be an avenue that we take and charge our music artists and our and people of influence and those in that level to really help transition that unity, because that's emotional, man. I mean, we had a church that traveled overseas to Japan and London and everything else, and we had people that couldn't speak our same language hugging us, you know what I'm saying, because they felt the power of God through music. So I just want to say, if that's going to transition anything, music can definitely be a huge way in the platform that we can use, but we got to put the ownership for unity. Those, the lyrics got to be right. You got to be tapped in. You got to be connected. But man, if it's delivered right, that could really help.
Love it. Love it. Come on, musicians. Give us your thoughts, Matthias.
I think I want to kind of, if I can, I want to touch on the two of the points or two of the questions that I want to table. And one thing was, Pastor John was saying, as far as like us people stepping out of their silos. One good thing that I saw, it was stepping out of the silos. I saw, Senator Mitt Romney. He actually, one of the first people to congratulate, President-elect Joe Biden in a very classy move, and actually, reaching out to him and things like he's been a Trump critic for so long, but I thought it was very classy. And those are the things, and hopefully, the demographic that really wasn't in favor of this election can kind of see that we've got to work together. And now, as I tie it back into unity, the world is watching. And I was looking at an interview that, Senator Romney was doing on not ESPN, but NBC. And it's like, the thing is, it's like this transition of power, we gotta, it's so many different sub elements to this that could either make this or break this. And, like I said, you have this demographic of people that wants to undermine the election, that wants to question it, that wants to question the integrity of it and stuff like that. But if there's ever a way that now, as I segue into what my brother was saying, if we can tie it in, these musicians can get out of here and make songs like how Marvin Gaye used to make back in the day, just really questioning and trying to form some type of direction.
Yeah.
And like how Andre Crouch used to do, and like those, if we can have music infused, that can be one way to kind of help bring some unity, along with what we talked about even in the first episode of the series, having that dialogue, with people, that may see otherwise, and trying to understand and try to get some type of clarity on what's going on, but also try to have those tough conversations. It's so much that has to be had from this. Because the work is really just starting, like we talked about earlier today, like my brother said, Marcus. I mean, the work is really just starting. I mean, it's an uphill battle, but like, hey, you all, like, I mean, if we have some type of clear direction on where we're trying to go, then we're gonna make some traction, as well. So that's kind of how I wanted to tie in everything with the last 2 points. It's been a really good discussion so far.
Thank you. Appreciate that. Matthew?
Around this time, it was December of last year, I was in South Africa on vacation. And one of the tours that I took was to a safari. It was about 2 hours out of Johannesburg. So on the bus that I was on, there was a young lady from Hamburg, Germany, and another young lady from Israel who was living in Australia. I've heard Marcus talk about worldview. I've heard Matthias just mention the world is watching. And the conversation that we were having, those 2 hours there and those 2 hours back about the history of Germany and, the discretions or the injustices against humanity there, and the injustices against humanity in Israel, and obviously the injustices against humanity in the United States. And what it really came to is we are so narrow here. We talk about silos a lot. Pastor John brought it up. I think getting out of this silo, this comfort zone, this narrow box that we're in, and having these discussions and understanding this is not about red and blue within the confines of this country as much as it is world issues. I think when we start to understand our place in the world and not just consider our own, but consider the world and how these things affect the world, I think unity will be something that becomes a little easier when we start thinking so narrowly, even within the confines of our country, and adopt more of a worldview. I know it's definitely helped me.
Okay. All right. Well, good stuff. Who wanted to give some last words that we didn't hear from? All right, Cornelius.
You know what? This is a very interesting topic. And I actually want to pose a question to the panel. I was just looking up some stats about white evangelical preachers. And in 2016, there were 81% pro-Trump supporters, and now it was 75. And I say that to say, while we want to bring, because we're Christian and we're trying to change the hearts and minds of people, how do we make that happen when there's a difference of opinion, or even how we use Christ in politics? You know, like how do we get those people to change? Well, they're using the same Bible to justify or support some questionable leadership. I mean, this week I saw people speaking in tongues because I literally saw people speaking in tongues because they were trying to get some Herculean fraudulent voter fraud thing and just turning this whole thing around, when it was clear that people had made their choice and people were speaking in tongues, quoting scriptures. I mean, and I don't know if you guys have seen clips. I don't want to mention.
I'm not laughing at you, cousins, real quick. I'm not laughing at you, Corey. It's just the joke came in my mind. I saw somebody say it sounded like she was reciting the Greek alphabet.
Yes. And man, it's like no. But Mike, I mean, you know, man, like this stuff is they're using the same Bible, they're using the same scriptures, and look, they're just as, when you look at them outwardly, they're just as straight-laced. You know, they're not crazy, you know, extremists, but as far as outward opinions.
I mentioned this real quick, just to dialogue with you real quick. I mentioned this earlier before you hopped on, so I don't know if you heard me, but I literally went through a list of preachers and pastors that, you know, I grew up, we were supposed to revere and respect.
Mm-hmm.
You know, James Dobson's, the what's the attorney's name? I'm forgetting his name. Jay Sekulow. You know what I'm saying? All these different, Paula White, all these other preachers that we were supposed to respect back then that are now, like, to me, have lost respect or whatever. But I'm saying that bring them up to say, like you said, they're literally looking at the same text and coming and justifying something totally opposite. I don't know, like, because I thought about it earlier when you said that, like, how do we dialogue with people who don't respect facts? You know what I'm saying?
And that's Mike, that's my point. And then and help me out, Apostle, and all my pastors, man. The Bible clearly states that we shouldn't argue. You know what I'm saying? We shouldn't have dialogue like that. Am I correct? That's in the New Testament, correct? Am I correct in that?
Right.
Somebody
throwing pearls before swine. Yeah.
Somebody help me out. So the Bible clearly states that we shouldn't do that, but yet we find ourselves in this locked horn and horn battle with, hey man, you're supporting someone that, you know, clearly is a misogynist and clearly is, you know, spitting out racist diatribe. And it's like, is God really behind that? How can you know what I mean?
He is not.
There's this battle.
He's not.
You know, and of course we know he's not, but then when somebody uses the word of God to support that type of leadership, as Christians, how do you, it's almost like, well, your version of God is incorrect. Go ahead, Apostle.
You have to be, there's a great segment of us who are delusional. If you are not lovers of the truth, if you are not a lover of the truth, then your mind will be open to delusion and to lies and deceit. And you have people now, you have a large segment of the body of Christ who are searching for scriptures to manipulate, to fit what's in their heart and what they want to project and what they want to preach, instead of looking at the truth that's plainly in their face. You know, and my heart goes out to, you know, Paula White. You know, when you first look at the video, you know, it's almost humorous, but it's really saddening. It's really saddening. When you look at Kenneth Copeland, it's really saddening because now what's happening now is the body of Christ is being made a mockery of now. There's parodies of those videos now.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And pretty soon, if we're not already there, I remember when the church garnered respect and honor and dignity and nobility and all of these, you know, great words. Now people are laughing and mocking, you know, so that they can hit all the bases, you know. So either way, you know, people want to be right instead of being accurate now. Or, well, let me say it this way. People want to be right instead of really knowing the heart of God.
Come on now.
You know? And so we got to want what God wants to say what they're saying, but they're saying it anyway, you know. And it's really, I would rather not say nothing than to preach my own heart, you know. And I said it a couple weeks ago, but it's been my heart throughout this whole thing that my prayer, I never prayed for Joe Biden to win. I never prayed for Trump to win. I prayed for the soul of this country. I prayed for the repentance of the church. Mm-hmm. I prayed that after this election, that we can reconcile and we can heal. That's what I prayed. And I think if you're praying your own agenda in this season, you're gonna be open to deception. You know, so
there are some churches in Revelation 2 and 3 that Jesus wasn't too happy with. You know, those are some good chapters to read when it comes to churches who are on the outside showing the same facade, but Jesus was kind of seeing right through it. That's Revelation 2 and 3. Some really good commentary there.
He talked about, you know, and John prophesied about it, the Laodicean church that looked opulent, that looked rich.
That's right.
Looked like everything that you would want. Churches and ministries, they look opulent, they have that form of godliness, but denying the power thereof.
Yep.
And so, you know, this is the time in the season of the storefront church, if you ask me. You know, all those churches that don't necessarily look like, you know, we get so caught up in a look that we miss the important things of God. And so, yeah, I'm gonna stop there.
It's nice. Y'all, you know, you all do this all the time. At the end of a session, y'all get all just, you know.
So somebody asks a heavy question, we gotta answer.
Heat all over again. Oh, I love it though. I love it. I love it. Gentlemen, I thank you again for this evening, for this time, for taking time out. Again, I mentioned how busy your schedules are, working and everything. And Cornelius, I'm so glad that you were able to join us on tonight. You that are here on Facebook Live and also on YouTube, I do appreciate each of you and your comments. And I didn't get to reading every one of them, but I do thank you so much for joining us on tonight and on this dialogue. But yeah, it's something to think about, and hopefully my panelists have given you something to think about yourself. I think at the end of the day, we need to be unified. We need to be unified. And there are some great points. So if you have to go back to rewind to the beginning, please do so, so that you will get everything that we talked about on tonight. We're going to get out of here. And I think what I want to do, I want to play that clip again as we're exiting. How about I do that? I see somebody shaking their head. Thank y'all. You guys make sure you stick with me on this week. I played this clip out. You guys take care of yourself.
Let music swell the breeze and ring from all the trees sweet unity. God, let our nation see our great democracy transition peacefully. Let freedom ring.
All right, guys, this is deep. Make sure, like I said, everything that we talked about on this evening, you are keeping up with. And go to my website, getcaughtinternetradio.com. I always say at the end of every broadcast, make sure you guys stay safe, wear your mask, wash your hands, and we will see you soon.